Like I said, Barbara, forgive me, I'm not an interviewer, so I'm just going to start off. I've made a few notes and I am
It's fun.
recording.
We'll just talk. That'll
Yes,
be
it's fun. So I don't know if you all guys had the chance to actually look through Barbara's website, her incredibly rich, yay, woohoo! Her incredibly powerful bio and life experience from veterinarian to wildlife researcher to animal communicator. I mean, an author of two amazing books. I only have this one in print because the other one does not ship in Greece, but Barbara was kind enough to send it to me in PDF. So I'm so, so grateful to you for that, Barbara. And to send to all of us to share the PDF for those who could not get the print copy in their hands. So it was very generous. Thank you, Barbara.
Oh, you're so welcome.
I mean, and for those of you who do not know, Barbara reached out to me through a newsletter response that I had sent out. And when I looked at the at the email that she sent me, I was literally like a groupie jumping up and down. Barbara Shor wrote to me, Barbara Shor wrote to me, Barbara Shor wrote to me. I was so thrilled because I had known of Barbara and her work as a veterinarian through some Facebook groups like 15 and maybe more years ago, where people were exploring alternative treatments and kindness and compassionate veterinarian medicine. And I must have stumbled upon you or some of your comments on Facebook, and I remember that I was locked in ever since. And then when I saw the turn to animal communication, I'm like, yes! I was so
Well, that's
happy.
so funny because I'm rarely on Facebook. And
Well,
15 years ago, I wasn't working as a vet. I've been doing animal communication for over 30 years.
for a
So,
long time. I guess I
so
must have
how
stumbled
funny.
on that conversation at that time, and it just clicked and stayed with me, and it was just remarkable. And now we're like, now she's my BFF, one of my BFFs. So if I can start with a little bit of a personal question for you, Barbara.
Okay.
You've made all these changes and transitions in your life. Uh, can you please share with us what about meeting the elephants and spending time with them has changed in your life and your heart?
Whoa. Well, I love elephants, obviously, and I've been to Africa a number of times, but not to Zimbabwe. And I've got a couple stories in the book of encounters in Namibia and Kenya. Um, and I had already been communicating with animals when I went to Africa and met with elephants in person. Um, and I had actually written a book. It was probably 250, 300 pages at least, with all different species. Elephants were part of it. But that book never got published. That book was like my practice, I guess. And then I went to Africa and I spent some time on a research project with Cape Buffalo. We were doing veterinary work at that time on Cape Buffalo and darting Cape Buffalo. And I lived in a tent in Masai Mara in Kenya. And every evening and morning, there would be this huge herd of elephants just hanging out in the meadow. And I just absolutely fell in love with those guys. And the last day, the very last day in that little tent, the elephants came to my tent, early, early morning, just before the sun was rising. And this is in the book too, there's a mother and her three babies, small, medium, and large. And the baby elephant came to my tent and was playing with the ropes of the tent. And I was just almost jumping up and down. I was so excited to see them. And then I couldn't help it. I went to get my camera and they heard me and kind of slowly walked away. And I came home and just felt the presence of elephants. You know, these times that I was in Africa, I felt the consciousness of elephants with me. And I said, what do you want? And they said, we want to write a book. And I said, but I already have a book. I've been writing for a long time. No, no, we went more in depth. And that's kind of how it started with the elephants. And I may have the dates and times wrong because, as I said, I've had a few trips to Africa, but
Mm.
that's what stands out in my mind is meeting them that way. Yeah.
So you
So,
became who you became thanks to them
so
eventually.
the book really was answering their call.
Mm.
And I had been writing with the elephants for months. And just sometimes I would get so moved by their presence that I would be in tears for like an hour and couldn't speak. It was so moving. And after some months, they said, we're going to make way for another species. I had no idea what that was going to be, but it was the whales, and the whales came in. So that's the first book, was Elephants and Whales. And years later, after I'd published my first book, again, I was in Africa, and this time in Namibia, and I came home and I heard the elephants, and and they really asked me to rewrite or to edit or rewrite the book, so they had some new information that they wanted to bring through, and they said it needs to get out to more people. Well, I am not a good promoter, I must say. So the book hasn't gone real far because I'm just not into marketing and sales and all that, but I honored their call, and that book took a couple years. That's my later book.
Which
So
was published in, I mean, in 2023, I think. It's quite recent. It is very recent,
yeah,
isn't it? Yeah.
yeah,
Well, we're going to
yeah.
spread the word because there is a
Okay.
lot of incredible messages inside the book. And I mean, what I love, and it was anticipated, I suppose, because I know of your work, but one of the central themes is that the elephants see themselves not just another species on the planet, but as consciously helping maintain the Earth's energetic balance. And you have explored so much of that, the purpose, their purpose as guardians, stabilizers of the Earth's field. And the elephants, I read in your book, the elephants speak about helping to hold that loving field for the Earth, that loving family field for the Earth.
Yeah.
And I wanted to ask you, has your own understanding of their mission evolved since writing the book? I mean, because you got those messages, you got responses to some of your questions, but has this understanding of their mission evolved these past few years since the first book, perhaps?
Wow, what an interesting question. The information I've received has been consistent over all the years. You know, each time I tap in, it's the same kind of thing. My personal understanding of it has evolved, and my trust in what they've been telling me has evolved. You know, it's really hard when you're communicating with a species, a wild animal like that, especially in a group, a species. It's hard to get validation for what you're doing. You know, it's a matter of trust.
Mm.
And I've been such a skeptic for so long, you know, skeptical of, is this for real? Am I making it all up? Where's this coming from? How do I know all this stuff? How do they know all this stuff? And what's happened over the years is validations in various ways through scientific studies, through other people's writings and communications, that kind of thing. So what's evolved for me is not the messages themselves as much as my understanding and belief in the messages.
Mm.
Yeah. So that's how I would answer that question.
Mm.
They've been the elephants and whales both have been very consistent in what they tell me.
Mm. Yes,
Yeah.
thank you. Thank you so
Yeah.
much.
And I'm curious if anyone else has any
Yes, if anyone has any questions,
questions or
please
comments or anything.
raise
I'd
your
like to talk.
hands so you can speak or put your questions in the chat.
Well, I have a question.
Yes, Gandhi.
Since I'm unmuted, I guess. Well, when you mentioned when you were there researching the Cape buffalo, I think you said, were you also working as an animal communicator then at that time?
No,
Mhm.
I'm probably getting my timelines mixed up because at that time, this was 1989 to 90. I lived in Kenya for a year. And no, I was definitely interested in wildlife. I'd done a residency at UC Davis in wildlife and exotic animal medicine, and was involved with this research project, but I wasn't yet communicating with animals until I came back from that trip and went into practice in a veterinary hospital, even though I wasn't sure about it. And I left in 92, and it was after that that I started communicating with animals in this way. But what's funny is when I was in doing this Cape Buffalo study, and we were darting the animals, with these darts, and I was already starting my spiritual awakening process, my learning about spirituality and that kind of stuff. So I had been working with pendulums, and I remember we lost some darts, in the grass and couldn't find the darts. So I convinced this veterinarian I was working with, and we took out hangers or copper rods or something. We were looking for the darts in the grass using pendulums. I mean, it was pretty far out there. I don't remember that we had a lot of success, but anyway, so it was kind of starting back then, but I wasn't communicating at all.
But you said when you came back, you felt the elephant's presence and wrote the book, but then
I,
you're
I
also,
think I think I goofed. I'm sorry. I've got my timelines mixed up. It was on another trip after that that the elephants actually started speaking with me. But at that time, I think there was already a process going on where I was just really, really connecting in with the elephants and falling in love with the elephants. And it's just, it's been a process. So sorry, I think I got my timing a bit mixed up.
Well, it's been 30 years.
No,
Bless
more
you.
than that. More than that. Yeah. Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Niamh,
Hi, Barbara. It's fun to hear your stories, and I'm curious. I haven't read your books. I ordered one,
Oh,
but I'm
great.
curious when you said the elephants were getting you ready to work with the whales.
Uh,
Were they all species of whales or a certain type? And do you go and spend time with the whales?
from my perspective, it's all different kinds of whales speaking as one voice, just like there's several different kinds of elephants and they speak in one voice to me. It's kind of an overarching consciousness is what I get. Um, the reason that I think the whales came along with the elephants is they serve the same purpose, is what they've told me. Number one, they work with the earth and help stabilize and harmonize the energy of the earth. And number two, as they move about, the elephants on the land and the whales in the ocean, they are spreading the intention, the consciousness of peace and understanding and love. So they're kind of seeding that consciousness as they move. And what the whales have told me more specifically, and I think the elephants have too, is they impact all the molecules, energetically, so that intention just moves out throughout the planet. And so in that way, that the whales and the elephants are the same. And for me, they seem like kind of a, a foundation for the earth. And for humanity, they have a focus on elevating our consciousness too, as much as they can. They can't interfere with us, but they can spread this intention,
Right. Beautiful. Thank you.
Sure.
Mhm.
So,
What else?
sorry, go ahead.
I just wondered if there's more questions or we should just keep going. I could talk about, we've talked about their mission, essentially.
Yes.
I was
I
just
do. I,
yeah,
I've got a few questions, Barbara, if you don't mind.
sure.
I was wondering, in my experience, maybe not specifically with elephants, but with other species, I always get the impression, get the feeling that there are individuals within a species that just come with a higher mission, with a higher consciousness, and then they are maybe, the majority of the species that kind of blend in at a lower level of consciousness, that I would put it to, that their purpose is to maintain the species on Earth, but that within those populations, there will be individuals which carry a higher frequency, which carry a higher consciousness, and that come with, let's say, a higher mission and a higher purpose. That is my experience with various species, but I'm wondering if you have encountered that with the elephants. I have encountered it with the whales, by the way, but not specifically with the elephants. And so I'm wondering what your perception is, what your experience is.
Wow, that's so interesting. I definitely feel they're individuals. And unlike some of the old spiritual teachings I've encountered, that say there's one group soul and that individual animals don't have souls, I don't believe that at all. And I've worked a lot with dogs and cats, and as everybody knows, there are a lot of differences in their personalities. I haven't worked enough with individual elephants in that way to actually talk about that. They're so, in the book, I talk with the matriarchs and I talk with the bulls. So these are groups of animals.
Right.
But I know they have individual personalities. Like the matriarchs have told me that, there are they're leaders, the matriarchs, there will be one leader of the group, and they have different temperaments. Some are a lot bolder and more out there. Others are quieter and more reserved. They all have individual temperaments. And so I think that's true of everybody, But for me, for whatever reason, the main part of what I've done has been with the whole group. And as I'm realizing in the elephant book, there's a chapter with two sisters. These are two elephant females who have passed on, and they were speaking with me. So, I think it's not either or, it's both and. Yeah, does that make sense?
Yes, absolutely. Oh, yes, there's definitely. But I think my question was more about not so much about personality, individual personality, because yes, absolutely, everybody, you can see that right in front of you everywhere. But it was more about I would say like the general species purpose, mission, and then individuals within that species that would have like a higher consciousness, like an almost a higher frequency. I'll give an example, but we don't have to carry on about this. If it doesn't immediately strike a chord. But I had an experience with whales, actually, in which it was, to me, and I didn't meet that many whales, but there were one or two among the several that we met that came forward with such intensity and such incredible fields of love, and that you really had the feeling that you were kind of embraced in this field of love and of divinity, and yeah, it was just an incredible experience. And it happened with individual whales, and then there was like the meeting with the general whales. I mean, I don't want to diminish their being in any which way, but to me, that they held like the purpose of the species, like needing to maintain the species on Earth. So their purpose was to propagate, to live their lives, to be a whale, essentially, within what the bigger purpose of the whales were. And then these other individuals would stand out in like an almost a higher purpose within that. As individuals. That was my experience specifically with the whales. And that was kind of what I was wondering, because I haven't come across it in the elephants per se, that certain individuals would stand out as, really coming forward with a greater purpose than just being an elephant, if we use the word just there, which is, yeah, kind of generalizing. So I don't know if that question makes any sense to you.
I love that. And I haven't had enough personal experience with individuals within the group, I guess, to really experience that with the elephants. But I'm sure, I'm positive it's true. And I think about all animals, and they're what I would call wise old souls that come through with maybe a little more elevated in consciousness or a higher purpose or whatever you want to call it. So I definitely think that's true. And with the whales, I only got to swim with one whale after 2 weeks in Tonga. And I still communicate with her. It's a mother whale, and she's just amazing. And I've had that experience with lions too. I've been with the white lions, Eleni, and there are a couple that have really, really spoken to me, and they're just these high beings. They're just so incredible. So I know it happens with all different species, all different animals, and it's quite profound when you encounter that kind of energy. It really is. So thanks for that question and story. That's wonderful.
Well, thank you for speaking into that.
Yeah.
And I've got another question, which I think is addressed in your book, but I haven't had a chance to. Eleni pointed out a specific chapter just today, so I had a quick read through it because I'd mentioned my question to Eleni, and she says, "Oh, this is touched on in your book," so I had a quick read through it. But I'd like to repeat that in the group, and I'd love for you to speak into that if you can, if you wish. And that is, it's not a very happy topic to speak about at all, but it is like it's coming to the forefront. I mean, I live here in Zimbabwe. I'm hearing it in the news. I mean, not that you have to live in Zimbabwe to hear it in the news, but it is like in our face at the moment. And that is the whole debate is coming up again about overpopulation of elephants and the need to do managed conservation, quote unquote, and the need for culling. And unfortunately, I think South Africa has taken the decision already that they are going to, in the short term, cull over 1,200 elephants in one or other place. I'm not quite sure of the name. And it is the debate is starting to spark up again in Zimbabwe. Eleni mentioned Namibia, I think Botswana, I don't know, but and it's horrifying, it's sickening, it's really absolutely horrific. But I wonder and I know that you have spoken to the elephants about this, and I was wondering if you could speak into it again from your, hear it from the horse's mouth, so to speak, from you again, if you would like to speak into this, as in what is the elephant's perspective on this? How do they see when we humans say that they are overpopulated? How do they respond to that? And then our paradigm of having to do maintenance conservation through lethal action. That's how they call it, that lethal maintenance. I mean, it is just horrific. So I was wondering if you could shed some light from their perspective.
Well, I can't speak to all of it from their perspective. That's, but from what I've heard and what I know, that culling is horrible. And the elephants, of course, don't like it. But what they especially didn't like, from what they told me, was these people go in and they cull entire families of elephants. They think that's a good thing. If we get rid of one elephant here and there, it could be a problem, but we get rid of whole families. And that is really, really damaging for all of them, for the herd. That doesn't work. And just the whole thing is really terrible and unnecessary. I've read a lot of stuff about it. And there are many conservation biologists, wildlife biologists, that think it's not necessary, it's not helpful, it's not a good thing. So there's that end. Then there are people that go in and they want to sterilize the elephants so they don't reproduce, which could be good in some ways, but it can disrupt the dynamics of the families. It changes behavior. So what the elephants told me, and this I'm sure is extremely controversial. I don't remember if I put it in the second book or just the first book, but what they told me was that if people feel it's absolutely necessary to kill some of us, because that's what it is, it's really killing them, murdering them. If you asked us, there would be volunteers.
It is in your book. It is in the second book as well.
It's in the second book? Okay.
Yes. Yeah.
And that was kind of a shock for me, but I also realized a lot of people would see that as totally crazy. But that's what they told me, is that, rather than just killing haphazardly, please, we would have volunteers, maybe older elephants that are ready to go anyway, or people that or elephants that are just in service. So I don't have any good answers, and it's just a horrible practice. And I don't know. I honestly don't know if at some point, Spirit, the divine, would be able to intercede and do something about this overpopulation thing. But I think the crux of it is it's due to humans. Humans have extended their farms and their roads and their buildings to where the elephants just don't have any place to go anymore. So they just don't have enough land to survive on. And it's really, really a terrible thing. So
it's interesting. So sorry, carry on.
No, I'm done. What were you going to say?
I was going to say that in my perspective too, nature, we're all part of nature, and nature at some point knows how to intervene in these kind of things and set things right. And it is often not by means that are very pretty or, soft and gentle. It usually is quite dramatic. But there is actually in Ghana Reserve, this is the park that we are going to go to as a group. And in the past couple of years, so this is one of the parks where the discussion is, do we have too many elephants? And it's got a history. I think in the 70s, they culled several tens of thousands of elephants here. Can you imagine? It was just absolutely horrific. But anyway, that is in the past. But the discussion's coming up again. Do we have too many elephants? And what we are seeing in the park is that there is actually now more in the last couple of years, there is a disease that is starting to happen within certain I think it mostly affects the males, interestingly enough, not so much the females, but it is the floppy trunk syndrome. I don't know if you've heard of it. And the scientists still don't quite know what causes this, but the bulls, mostly the bulls, get to suffer from this disease progressively from the tip of the trunk, spreading upwards. It's a paralysis of the trunk. And so these bulls, yeah, and so they struggle to feed and to drink and to essentially live. And it's a horrible disease, but they slowly, but eventually they die of it. And because it is the free roaming bulls, and I don't know, but I was thinking about it, and I've seen these elephants with this floppy trunk syndrome, and it's tragic. But I was thinking, is this something that nature, is this intervention from nature to say this is a population control thing? Now that these elephants, they just have this park, they can't get out. And it's a massive park, but there are a lot of elephants here. So within this restricted environment, is this possibly a way that nature intervenes and says, okay, this is how we're going to control population, by having certain individuals die, and the bulls are there for the breeding bulls. So obviously, reducing the population growth in such a way.
Wow, that's fascinating.
That was just a thought. Yeah.
No, I think that's a really good thought. That's amazing. I'm going to look that up. I don't know about that. So thank you for, wow, that's something. Yeah, nature isn't always kind, but it's effective. Yeah.
Yes.
Can I chime in on this one?
Yeah.
Mariëtta shared. I've been helping out recently the culling of horses in Australia. Call it culling instead of killing, it's interesting. So, and it was a response that I had gotten, that when we feel that we are unmanageable as a population, we will allow nature to come in and take some of us as is needed. And again, of course, volunteers would also come up if they were asked, and if they were asked to participate. And in my understanding, what is most important is for the opportunity for them to understand and explain why this is happening. And yes, the motives is usually greedy on the part of humanity, but when it is explained in a compassionate way that we have no choice as kind people, or the compassionate ones, or the ones that are fighting for your rights and for your freedom, we can't really change the law right now, and the human ridiculous law has voted for this. How can we assist you in this process, because we can't undo it or reverse it? Then they do find volunteers. The elders are showing up, or they are forming circles around the younger ones so that they will not be shot. And it is fascinating how they come together in order to participate in the kindness of humans who want to help them by trying to participate in the solution, never judging the other humans or why this is happening, never going there, not interested in that, which is quite fascinating. So I'm assuming that this is true for all species. When they feel threatened, whether it is greed or whether it is under the guise of conservation or whether it is under the guise of protecting biodiversity from overpopulation, they would just like to know. They would just like to be explained. They would just like the courtesy of being involved of what's going to happen, just simple courtesy for them. And I'm sure that many of you have heard of this. There have been a lot of new births in South Africa specifically, and I also believe in Botswana, where new elephants are being born without tusks because nature does protect them. Nature has realized that
You mean without tusks?
yes, without the tusks, because
Right.
since
Right,
it
that's
has
true.
been now genetically imprinted into their body that those with the tusks get killed, murdered for their tusks, that is an unconscious decision to interfere with their own genome so that they do not produce offspring with with tusks. And I find that amazingly fascinating that they are able to adapt, and it hasn't happened within a few centuries, it's happened within a few decades. I mean, it's not a long time. Many thousands and hundreds of thousands, if not millions of elephants have died because of this, but they have found a way to adapt to protect themselves. And there was another story that I had heard where there was an overpopulation of different herds of elephants, and the marula trees were dying out in that area. I don't remember where that was, but the marula trees were dying out, and almost there weren't any. So the decision was from a national park or a reserve that they would have to start culling elephants if they wanted to protect the marula trees, because then eventually, without the marula trees, many other species, and especially elephants, would die out of starvation because it was their primary source of food. At the time, when some animal communicators, and this is how I had found out about this, when animal communicators told the elephants, this is what humans are planning to do. Is there any way you can migrate? Is there any way you can support yourself, nourish yourself, and sustain yourself by allowing the marula trees to recover from overfeeding? They hadn't touched the trees for 2 years. They found other sources. They didn't leave. But I believe that this was one of the groups that we were working with Anna Breitenbach at the time. So it could have been Botswana, because this is where we did our work with elephants. But it was remarkable because people noticed this, that the elephants did have some trouble, and also they reproduced a little less during this time. So they know. And it might take them a lot of years or decades to know physically, genetically, so that they get that imprint, or they can have animal communicators tell them. Is the way I understand it. And they were just told, this is going to happen. And they steered away from the marula tree so that the trees could recover. It was fascinating. And it's,
Amazing. That's so cool. One thing I did forget to mention about the culling, which you just talked about, is if we could at least let them know what's happening in advance, it would be helpful, Yeah. But the other problem with the overpopulation is the people that live in those areas. The elephants don't have any food, so they raid these people's crops, and then there's all this conflict. And what they've told me is that if these people have a really angry, aggressive stance, the elephants pick it up. And, it goes in a vicious circle. Whereas
they mirror it.
Yeah.
They mirror the human condition in that.
If people could somehow be a little calmer, it would help. But it's a really difficult situation. So people are planting pepper plants, or they're raising swarms of bees to protect their crops. There are different methods to prevent the elephants from destroying everything, but it's a really hard situation for a lot of people. Yeah. Somebody else?
Don't they try to raise her twice?
Well, I just wondered what the elephants or the horses, how they feel about human overpopulation. They have an opinion on that. I mean, a lot of problems would be solved if it weren't for us.
Yeah.
I have not asked. That's a good thing to ask. And
then I think the floppy trunk thing was that in that other movie that you recommended, Eleni. You talked about the Gods in Shackles.
Gods in Shackles, yeah.
Oh, I don't know this movie, Eleni. What is it?
Okay, so that is another incredible elephant lady. She's working with Voices for Asian Elephants. She's the founder of Voices
Oh
for
yeah,
Asian Elephants. Her name
I've
is
met her.
Sangeeta Iyer. I will send you information. And
Please do.
yeah, and she did this documentary. She wrote a book which was forwarded by Jane Goodall, called Gods in Shackles. And then later on, she did that documentary, which was also supported or sponsored by National Geographic. It was an award-winning documentary. She's done incredible work for the elephants. And that is the other thing, that she's been advocating a lot about the beehives, so that the communities in India can protect their crops of food and their, and their animals and their huts, the underprivileged communities, from the raids of elephants. And that was one of the things that Jane Goodall was very helpful with, because she said, if there is one thing that the elephants really hate, is actually bees coming up their trunk. So if you just, place beehives, the elephants are not going to go anywhere near where there are bees. So she's done wonderful. I will send you the information. Yeah.
Thank,
Yeah.
thank you. Wow, so much good information here. I've learned a lot myself.
But I can give a short response about the human overpopulation. The way I got it from horses, actually, I haven't asked. But many times you talk with horses, but you pretty much ask nature, the species of all animal species, and even the human species that are open enough to be able to listen and respond to these types of questions. And said, what we are overpopulated because of how we use our resources. There's enough resources even for humans right now. Still, there is enough. But we are abusing those resources, and we're abusing the way that we extract them, and we're abusing the way that we use them, and we definitely throw so much of them away. And that is not sustainable. So the animals believe that there's room for everyone, as long as they do this in kindness, and again with what's the word, with full consciousness and awareness. Mindfulness was the best. Mindfulness of how much do I need, and where do I get it from, and where is it coming from, how many and who had to suffer in order for me to have what I just want or need right now. So yeah, those are big questions, and animals are willing to give us what we need if we just be kind about it, I guess.
Yeah, and it reminds me of when I asked about the climate. I asked the elephants about
I have a
climate.
question about this, actually, in your chapters
And
about the climate
said
crisis.
basically it's kind of relates to what you're talking about. It's not just about climate control. It's about a whole huge paradigm of the way humans live on the earth, with greed and hatred and all that kind of stuff. And it's just creating all this damage. So what's your question?
Yeah, my question is, because I loved those. It's the 2 chapters about climate change and healing the earth. And I was wanting, because that was also is also part of my book, like inviting nature and animals into the boardroom, inviting them into to sit around the table with the decision makers, and to speak directly to the world leaders. And I'm just wondering, what would they most want for humans to understand about caring for Earth right now? Compared, talking about the climate change and the healing of the earth. But what if they were to come to this table and discuss with, not necessarily us, but decision makers and leaders, what would they want us as humanity to understand about caring Earth moving forward?
I never do this, but I'm going to see if I can ask. I'm feeling it. So humans have this tremendous, we've got somebody coming for my dog. Can you hear the barking?
No.
Oh, good. Humans have a tremendous responsibility to care for the earth, because humans are the only ones that have hands to create things, and a certain kind of brain that can think in abstract ways. We don't have that capacity on the earth. So it's humans' responsibility to take care of what was given. And every piece of life is a gift. And so many people take it for granted. But if humans could respect one another and all life, including animals and plants on the earth herself, with love and kindness and care, everything would shift. So ultimately, it's a shift in consciousness in humankind that would change the situation. And that's easy to say, but not so easily done after centuries and millennia of a different way of being. So if love could predominate and hatred and wars and violence would be ended, and everyone would know that there is enough for everyone, and greed would end, it would solve all the problems. But that's up to humans. And it's people like you here who are part of that movement that's so crucial for Earth's survival and everyone else's survival. So that's what I think the elephants would say.
Have they ever given any practical advice on issues between humans and nature, quote unquote, conflicts?
I don't know if I don't know about practical advice. It's just a matter of attitude more than specific action steps. Just what they do say is that for all of us to let others know who the animals really are at their core, so that people, sometimes when you love something, you're more apt to protect it. And when people consider animals as just animals and these little things that serve our needs, it's so limited. And if people could really understand the depth of wisdom and the depth of compassion, it always astounds me when and I'm sure you feel the same way, Eleni, when I'm talking to the animals, how compassionate they truly are. And if you look at the way humans have treated elephants and whales and all the other beings, it's pretty awful in many ways. And yet they're so forgiving. If we could learn that from them, just that, I think it would change everything.
It was something that you mentioned. I think it was in that chapter where you talk about Earth's ascension or the vision for the future.
Yeah.
And they had this beautiful message where they're saying that humanity is still growing and is still learning. And I'm just wondering, I mean, I'm not personally me, but sometimes me as well, but not just elephants, many other animals and species. What gives them still, after everything we have done and do to them, what gives them such faith in us and such hope in us, do you think?
I think they know us on a higher level. They know our souls, and these little beings that are wandering around on Earth as human beings, that's such a small part of who we are. And I really feel like they're so elevated in consciousness that they relate to us on a higher level, and they see who we are and they see our potential. There was a piece from the whales where they talked about humans as creators, all these amazing things that humans have created, music and art and buildings and roads and planes and telephones and computers. I mean, we're so creative. And if we can use that capacity in a positive, loving way, what else is there? So I think that's how they see us, and they go beyond all the atrocities that have been committed. I think that's how they can be so compassionate and forgiving.
I believe that too. I really do.
Seems like Dondi had a question.
Sorry, I have lots of questions, but
Yes, please.
well, I wondered if you or Eleni, either of you have worked specifically with elephants, like in the States, in either sanctuaries or zoos, like specific elephants to help them with their needs, or were you more talking with the consciousness and sort of the messages that way? Or Eleni, I don't know if you have, or anyway, I'm just curious.
I've not spent time at an elephant sanctuary in the US. I've been around elephants. And many years ago, I worked as a veterinarian with elephants, but not in the same capacity that I've worked with lions, for instance. I just haven't. Have you, Eleni?
Yeah, and Dondi, you must know, because with Winter at the Heart Pride, we are called to work with individual elephants in zoos or sanctuaries, or Mojaji, when she was, before she was killed, when she was at that ride with tourists facility. And but I mean, I have also worked with a lonely elephant here in Athens Zoo. When I'm called, it's not easy. And one of the things that actually made me overcome my self-judgment and the fear of others' judgment is that I would never want to visit these animals if I were called to work with them. But then I had this, it was very many years ago, and I had this beautiful mentorship with Anna Breitenbach, and she said, don't think you're overthinking this. If you don't go to see them, then who will? Just go and do this the way you know how to do this. Clearly, it can be done by long distance, but the heart field, because it's enormous, of the elephant, like the horses, and so you can help even greater when you're there and just being in that presence. But I must be called for an individual situation to talk and communicate or support an individual elephant. And yeah, it happens occasionally. And it is beautiful work. It is supportive, especially when you want to get an elephant outside of captivity and the people somehow have become awake to the situation and are ready to release the elephant, and the management is ready to release the attachment to the funds and the ticket selling, and the vets are assisting as well. And then you find sanctuaries that are also want to support and open their doors, because everything is overpopulated right now with captive and rehabilitated and rescued, if we can call them that, animals. But when they call humans on behalf of animals or animals themselves, I always do my best to respond.
Yeah, I figured, well, since there's so many Americans here, and there's that Bronx elephant at the Bronx Zoo that, is by itself, and I just wondered if there's any, so that'd be more easier for me to visit that one than, the other one. So just curious.
Let us
if
help.
people are even, first they have to be receptive to having.
Let us help, Dondi, let us know when, how, and we'll support you all for this, through this. We can do it. We know we can do this. Clearly, yeah. So the one elephant I was supporting here in Greece, and of course he was very, very depressed. It was a very sad story. And it was interesting because some people who knew about what I was doing said, well, it's interesting. You started talking with the elephant and you started assisting, and then the elephant was getting sicker and sicker. It was only because I explained to the elephant that there is no way out. And, so the elephant decided to get sick and die. Of course, no one was really open to hear that, but that is what I was feeling. It's like, oh, if there's no hope, can you just help me die? And I said, I can't do that. I don't have the means to do that. But I will hold your trunk for whatever it is that you want to do.
I know there's a big movement to free that elephant, Bronx Zoo. And there's an organization, I can't think of the name of it now, Stephen Wise. Does anybody know Stephen Wise, who created an organization fighting for the rights, legal rights of animals? And he did it for, was it an elephant named Happy, and then chimpanzees fighting in the courts. And Stephen Wise has passed, but his group continues. Okay. And I'm sorry, I can't think of the name.
Thank you.
Thank you. I'll look it up.
If something comes up, Barbara, just write us an email. Maybe we can all support in that.
Gosh, I had it just recently, but I can't think of the name.
Anyone else? Any questions?
There's also an organization you might be interested in, the Global Elephant Foundation or something. They're based in Brazil, I believe, where they've rescued a bunch of circus elephants from all over South and Central America, and they're caring for them there. And then there's in Tennessee, there's an elephant sanctuary, and PAWS, P-A-W-S, is in California, and they've got some elephants there. These are all really good groups. I've been to 2 conferences through PAWS some years ago, captive animal conferences with people from all over the world speaking on behalf of captive animals and their needs. And there was one that was actually called an Elephant Summit, where people who work with elephants from all over came and spoke. So PAWS, Performing
Thank
Animal
you.
Welfare Society, is a really good one too.
Thank you.
Thank you, Barbara.
Thank you all. This has been so sweet and informative. Thank you.
Can I, if no one else has any question, and I know we're past a little bit the hour, I would like to ask a question, sort of like assignment, if I may, with your guidance and your experience as an animal communicator and who has worked with elephants for so many decades on an intuitive level. We have all felt from the beginning, as we were gathering as a group, that the elephants have been calling us in Zimbabwe. We have connected with them. We've had meetings where we meditated and felt their guidance and their already invitation and embrace, and we've already envisioned our time together. But I also wanted to ask you, Barbara, like from your experience, as a group, all of us, what is it do you think that we can prepare in our inner landscape, in ourselves, so that we can meet the elephants in that ascended level, ascended soul space that they are in? What?
Wow.
Yeah.
I think practice, getting quiet, just getting quiet and putting it out your strong intention and focus and attention on the elephants. That's been what's worked for me. I just have been reading through Lynn McTaggart's book. You know, she's written a number of books about intention circles. And when I was learning about shamanism, they talk about the importance of intent. And I think intention or intent is so powerful that it draws things to you, whatever it is that you're intending. So if you're intending to help the elephants and be present with them, I think that's the most important thing. And I will say that for me, when I'm in the presence of an animal is not necessarily when I get my intuitive messages, because I'm physically present. It's afterwards when I get quiet and focus in that I can get the messages. So I would just say, don't expect to have this big booming elephant voice in your head when you're in the presence of elephants. It doesn't, for me anyway, it doesn't work that way. It's allowing yourself to be fully present with them. And then if something wants to come, whenever, let it come, but enjoy the experience.
That's beautiful. Thank you so much.
I want to go with you. We'll see. We'll see.
Next year.
It's going to be so wonderful. You're going to have such a great time.
We'll share a lot with you when we come back, promise.
Great. Great. Well, it's been so nice meeting all of you. Thank you for allowing me this time and for all the
Thank you.
great sharings that have come through. I've learned a lot here, so thank you.
We're so humbled and such a huge privilege that you spent this hour with us. Thank you, Barbara, so, so much. Thank you for your books. Thank you for everything you're doing for the elephants, animal communication, all animals. Thank you.
And thank you, Eleni. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Barbara. Really, really appreciated you joining us here today, and thank you for the generous gift of your book. Really appreciate that, and I will come round to reading it, not
One
just little
thing the
bits and pieces.
elephants told me that I have, it's in the book, I think, but I haven't said this today, is what the elephants told me is in these books, it's not the words that are so important, it's the energy behind the words. So perhaps if you read the book and really intend it, the elephants will come through.
That is very true.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely.
It was my experience for sure. Such an honor, Barbara. Thank you so, so very much. Thank you, Niev. Have a good session. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you. Thank you.